Alright, last night when I quit working on this, I was at this this conundrum of this crossroads. And I've determined that if I tighten this spanner nut up all the way, that I run out of thread before it gets to the point where it starts bearing on this surface right here. And that I've already got a gap on this side. Now I can rid myself of this gap on this side easy enough if I just want to move the lead screw back out of the other end there further and close this gap up. Problem is that creates even a larger gap on this side that needs to be filled, and I'm still not sure what's going on down here at the lead screw end. You can see the lead screw is sticking out from the end here about 1/4 of an inch. And I looked at video last night, some of my older video, and to me it sure appeared like this end was almost flush with the end of the box here, which would suggest that yes, this should go out that way further, which in turn will create a situation where that closes this up, okay, but then we're going to have a larger gap on that end there, and it doesn't look like there's any getting around that. As far as my experiment to get the felt in there, I folded the felt in half like I had planned on doing. The problem was I had planned on using a very thin piece of wire, like maybe a guitar string, and looping the guitar string through the folded halves, and then sticking the string through the gap there and then pulling it out the other side. But what I forgot was that we put this spacer in here that was missing before. When this spacer was missing before, I could actually see the back of that slot, so I would be able to grab onto the wire and pull it through, and everything would work out, I think, pretty fine. But I can't do that. So what I did was, as I was moving this lead screw in through the gears, I was also working on getting this to work its way in. And I did cut this extra long and just figure I'd cut off the excess, but I only was able to get it up to about this hole, and then it got caught and I can't get it to go any further, and I can't seem to get anything that will work as far as getting that to move along there. So I think maybe that's going to be as good. I think we're just going to have to cut this off right here, and that's as good as it gets. And actually that's going to even come out even further, because if I move this lead screw back over, that's going to force that out. So I've searched high and low and haven't been able to find anything that goes on here. There's a keyway on the top here on this threaded part that doesn't exist over here on the lead screw, I don't think, because the keyway in the lead screw is wider than that, pretty sure. Well, maybe that is the keyway. Take two. So I looked at really early video of me taking this apart last spring, and the problem is that I was working on getting this spanner nut off, and I fast forwarded and zipped right through the part where I was taking this off. So I could see me unscrew this, and I doesn't look like I put the part down right here, so it doesn't look like I took anything else off of this side. As far as the spacer being on this side, well, unfortunately, when I started working on taking this pin out, I think the battery died. So and it was getting dark, so I really don't have any video of that. But later video shows this collar and the spanner nut sitting up here with no other parts that I could see. So it makes me think there was nothing there to begin with. Now, that being said, I've got a strong feeling that I wasn't the only person to have this apart. Maybe the last person who had this apart lost the piece or left it out. As if that doesn't make matters worse enough, remember the keyway, piece of key stock in here that locks all of these gears to the shaft? You know, it had a tendency to want to stay back this direction, or stay back here as the shaft was going in. And I was able to tap it along until I could no longer see it, and it disappeared. Once I could no longer see it, I don't know where the keyway was staying. I'd like to think that it can't move out of that slot far enough to disengage this last gear. But what I noticed was when I was rotating these gears to make sure that I was getting them in position to get the keyway to move along, you'll notice if I move any of these other gears, you don't see really any. These all seem locked to each other pretty solid. Watch this last gear. Okay, I just used two hands to push this gear back down. Watch when I go to move this gear up. Watch closely the teeth in relationship to the gear next to it. You see how that moves just a tiny bit before? So, I'm not convinced that that keyway is fully seated into this last gear. And that's not good. And there's no way I could see it from this side. So, I don't know. Alright, I pulled out the lead screw a little bit so that this isn't sticking out anywhere near as far. It's still sticking out a little bit, but not as much. And I found out that it turns out all of these gears have that little tiny bit of play on the keyway. And what was happening is, I think when I had this pushed in, it was pushing in on, because there's a change in the diameter of the shaft. If you push this in too far, it actually starts pushing and compressing this whole cone of gears, and they were actually, the sides of the gears were friction fitting against each other. So this is how it was, I think, originally, with that little bit of jiggle in there, which I think is normal. So that, interestingly enough, if I look over here on this, this camera's not going to focus on this, but there's a ghost right there, line right there. There's a groove right here. If I move this spacer over into position and lock it down, this locking collar, that little ghost right there is going to be just about right where the spacer sits. Now, interestingly enough, there's another rub mark way over here, but there's no way that this goes all the way through to that, so I have no idea what that's all about. Turns out that position that I want to leave things in over there corresponds almost perfectly to when this bracket is back on, to this collar being up against this with no gap. But I put a feeler gauge in there. I don't want that up against there too tight. I mean, the few thousandths I'm introducing with the feeler gauge, I don't think that's going to make a difference as far as lost motion of the lead screw goes. Could be wrong, but well, I'm gonna just go with that for now. Alright, so I've got my collar set down the other end tightened. I've got the little tiny bit of space that I wanted in here right where it is. Not that I think it's going to matter, because it just occurred to me that when I tighten this up, that's going to basically pull this over to this. Well, anyways, good news is I overlooked this container I had on the workbench, and lo and behold, what would be in here but a dirty old collar that has a piece of key stock in it that fits this perfectly, and looks like it's going to be just the ticket to take up this space. So mystery solved. Question now is, how tight should that be? There's a locking screw to keep it from loosening. Hey, I went up and reviewed some video to refresh my memory yet again as to the order of assembly on these gears, because sure enough, the gear that goes here can't get behind this gear, so this gear has to come off and this one goes on first. And while I was doing that, I noticed that there was actually key stock two pieces of key stock, or Woodruff keys on this shaft that key this shaft, this gear to this shaft. And I'm thinking, I didn't put those back on. No, they're on there. Right there. Alright. But I had to take that off anyways because this gear right here goes on here. Like this. Like that. And memory serves me. I don't think. Yeah, you can't get this gear on with this gear in place. So. Oh, looks like get out again. And the other thing that was it was good that I looked at the video, because the other thing that it helped me remember was the fact that there's that thick washer that goes on here, just sitting right here. This is the one that originally was on the outside of the cover, and I ended up figuring out later that it goes on the inside of the cover, which kept this from doing this nasty thing. Alright. Okay, so now I believe it's okay for me to put this assembly back on here. Right? I think so. That stupid spring just popped out. The longer it takes for me to put this thing together, the tireder I get. What's going on here? There we go. I knew there was a way to do this. One of these screws is longer than the other. I don't remember what I did last time to get this cover to go all the way on. There was a little gap here. Ooh. Alright, time to put the spindle back together. Alright, so when I last dealt with this, I was in a holding pattern because I was going to wait for some felt to come in that I didn't end up ordering. So I'm going to go with a different plan here, and I'm going to use some of this craft felt, which is not the right stuff, but that's what I'm going with. So instead of felt cord, my plan is to pack that hole right there that's supposed to go on with felt. But now that I recall how this went, I remember that this assembly with the gear came off of here, and then I pressed this gear out. So I'm going to reverse the order then, and I'm going to want to put this gear back end first, which I haven't cleaned yet. And then also this has the same kind of deal. It's got the hole there. But now that I know how this works, instead of trying to pull all of that crud out of the groove like I was doing before, basically I was trying to fish all of this out through here. Well, this groove actually looks like it's a different design than the other one. There is an oil hole here. Feel the felt in there. So getting this to just pull out and slide out in one piece, that, I guess that was kind of a fantasy. It's interesting, the hole doesn't seem to go all the way up this end. It only goes part way. Oh, there might be another one of those little cork plugs in the end here. That might be what's holding it in. Slides in, but it doesn't slide out. Yep. There's the little plug. I got this one out intact, unlike the other one that I destroyed. Alright, so now with that plug out, can I just get this whole thing to pull out this way? Yep, there it is. It's like a turd. Alright, so I'll clean that. Oh, I covered the top of the parts washer with a bunch of junk. Again. Alrighty, that gear cleaned up nice, and I got that slot or channel there clean as a whistle. The only thing left in it now is some parts cleaner residue, which won't hurt anything. Just make sure. Alright. Let's see. Let's get this nasty stuff out of here. Alright, I got a couple of possibilities here I can go with. I've got this stuff, which I could just feed in very small amounts and just pack and pack and pack and pack into that thing, into that groove. This feels really soft and cottony. Alright. Then I got this stuff, which is more dense. So I'm thinking maybe I'll use this stuff. I'm thinking what I could do, maybe, just maybe, I could roll this into a little cylinder. I mean a real little cylinder. And then feed it in there. That's gonna prove trickier than it looks. Well, I don't have to make this all in one, I certainly don't have to make this all in one length. It might be much more manageable if I try and make this in a series of little plugs that I run down there. This stuff does not cut well at all. Hey! Single edge razor blades. I was looking for those when I found that shavette thing in that toolbox. Turns out I had them in here with all my utility knife blades. Why do I have a used hook knife blade? Alright, let's try cutting this stuff with a blade. Oh yeah, that makes more sense. I don't roll my own. Come on. So I'm packing this down into the hole so that it's squeezing out through the groove right here a little bit. Because from what I read in those old machinist periodicals, it appears that the felt's actually supposed to be in contact with the bearing surface. What happens is the oil's supposed to come down in here, saturate the felt. The felt wicks the oil and transfers it along the groove, and then by being in contact with the bearing surface actually transfers the oil, the film of oil. I need one more little piece. So the heck of it, I wonder how this stuff would have worked. Yeah, I don't like that. That stuff doesn't seem to... That stuff kind of wants to come out of the groove, and it almost seems like it's going to get pulled out of the groove and try and... doesn't... I don't think it has the abrasiveness. It's too soft, to sum it up. Just going to have to make me one more little... Oh, I had a piece right here. Alright, I'll use it on the next one. Oh, nice. Perfect. Looks like I gave myself just enough room to put that little cork back in. Oh no. I think I swept that little cork up with all the old felt and threw it away. Yeah, I bet you that's what I did. Well, that's okay. I already had a plan B because I destroyed the other one. I was going to have to make a new one of those. So anyways. Spoke too soon. Need some more. Alright, I got my little plug. My idea is I took a little piece of cable that was about the size of the hole, and then I wrapped it with electrical tape so that it ended up being a tight fit. And I bashed it in there, followed it in a little bit with this, trimmed off the excess, and I just missed a little spot there. And that should work fine. What's going to keep that plug in there is the fact that this is actually up against the up against something, right? Okay, yeah. What I was saying is, it's up against this face right here. No, it's not. It's up against nothing. Well, still, it's in there pretty tight. Should stay. I hear myself saying it, but I don't believe it. And I shouldn't. That's not going to work. That came out way too easy. If that plug works its way loose, it's going to fall out inside there and not really cause any problems, I doubt, but then the oil's going to basically leak out of that side. Alright, so guess what I decided to use for a plug? The original plug. I wouldn't. Actually, I don't know, by some miracle I was able to fish it out of my trash bucket. Thing's so tiny. Don't know what it's made out of, but it seems like it's made out of leather. Goes in there nice and tight. Conforms to the hole. Alright. It's too tall to go underneath my arbor press. Ow! Ow! Wrist did something to it. Yeah, I know, I said I was going to clean this up, but it's going to be so much easier to do this while it's turning. Where is it? Maybe I should clean this up before we do anything. If I could hold this up to my wire wheel on my... Well, that sounds like a bad idea. Let's try that.